Welcome to our boldly going nowhere everyday Dharma talk. This week being given on the patio of my home on the southwest Pacific coast of Costa Rica. Videotaping while self-sheltering meets the challenges and the changes brought about by the pandemic, a word I just had trouble saying. And sharing on the internet helps to keep us connected. So please, dear friends, we're together here now. Mindy Elms, for those of you who don't know her, is a mentor for U.S. prisons, Buddha correspondence courses. And she's going to give us a guided meditation for about 8 to 10 minutes.
Welcome, good morning. Let's close our eyes. With your eyes closed, take a moment to arrive on your cushion or your chair. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, let go of the day so far. Start to invite deep breaths and allow the exhalation to be longer than your inhalation. Actually, the exhalation calms. The inhalation brings energy, and a longer exhalation calms the mind and the body. This is the breath I'd like you to stay with. Long inhalations, longer exhalations. The back is straight. You're lengthening through the spine. Feel yourself growing taller, imagining that straight line from the sit bones all the way up to the crown of the head. Tuck the chin, allowing the back of the neck to lengthen. And so that becomes part of the straight line. The spine is strong, but it's not rigid. It's in this meditative posture that we can be both relaxed but still alert. When we want to awaken rather than feel sluggish. What do we do with our hands? Our hands do so much for us day in and day out, probably more than any other body part. Allow them to rest completely where they feel totally relaxed. Give them permission to relax. Soften the belly. Take another deep breath in, and as you exhale, let the shoulders drop away from the ears. Bring your attention to your physical body, noticing any sensation, tingling. Maybe there's a pain, scratch, hot, cold. Just notice and let go of any control of how things should feel, rather than just see how they are right now. It's by this simply noticing So we're shifting our perception and control of how we think things should be. Just relax and notice how things are. Take another deep breath in, sigh it out, remembering that exhalation being a little longer than the inhalation. As we do a short body scan, just notice any sensations in your body parts without analyzing them. And then after you notice, use your breath to soften and relax those areas. Starting with the toes, the feet, the soles of the feet, the heels, soften and relax. The shins, the calves, the knees, the thighs, relax and soften. If you don't like your eyes being fully closed, try opening them with a soft gaze downward. Soften the belly, the hips, the pelvis, the lower back, mid back, the upper back. Soften and relax. The hands, the fingers, the wrists, lower arms, elbows, upper arms, shoulders. Notice any sensations, and then soften and relax. Start to soften the face, the jaw, the tongue, the cheeks, ears, nose, forehead, eyebrows. Soften and relax. And lastly, the crown of the head. Soften, lengthen, spine. Take another deep breath in, sigh it out. Few more deep breaths, relaxing the entire body. Now, notice the mind. Where's your mind at? It's still busy. Perhaps with the body relaxing, the mind has somewhat relaxed. Or maybe it hasn't. Just notice where your thoughts are, if you have any, without judging or controlling. Let your breath come back to normal. Easy in and out of the breath. And notice as your mind softens and empties, the heart begins to open. It begins to open and imagine into our open heart peace and compassion coming in. Mind softens and empties. Your heart opens, allowing immeasurable amounts of peace and compassion, filling the heart. And not only filling the heart, but spilling out and washing over the entire body. Imagining with every in-breath, peace and compassion, happiness, stillness, filling the heart, spilling out, and with the exhalation, washing over your entire body. Emptying the mind, allowing the heart to open. Before we come out of meditation, I'll share a Mahayana prayer. It's short. May all beings everywhere with whom we are inseparably interconnected be fulfilled, awakened, liberated, and free. May there be peace in this world and throughout the entire universe. And may we all together complete the spiritual journey. And gently bring yourself out of meditation, open your eyes. Join me, bringing your palms together. And namaste.
Thank you, Wendy. Yes, for so I can speak up a little louder. 2020, perfect vision. In November, when we began our 5th season of Dharma Talk, I had this happy notion that this year, 2020, would be a visionary year. It might even be the year of the great global spiritual awakening. And somehow, in my imagination, that great awakening would happen with radiant light and sounds of heavenly choirs. Well, 8 months in, it hasn't quite been the way I thought it was going to be. That happens a lot. And after a period of dismay and some disappointment and even some shock, it occurred to me, though, that maybe it was just a wrong idea to think it was going to be so heavy. That maybe the awakening is in its birth process. It is being brought into the world with the same kind of struggles as the moth from the cocoon or the butterfly from the chrysalis, with a great deal of suffering. And if that is the case, then I think we should take a little extra time, maybe, to really give thanks to our spiritual teachers, because we really need to turn to them for guidance to see this through. We need guidance for clarity of our thought, calmness of our hearts, courage when we're in the heart, for the confidence to know that we can make it. And yes, comfort. That primarily is given to us by our friends and family. When we need them, they're there for us. When they need us, we're there for them. And believe me, from all that I see and hear, what we're going through this period of time is pretty scary. And it can be overwhelming. And there are times when we just don't know that we're worn out. But take heart. So in thinking about this talk, with so many people suffering so much quite rational stress and quite rational anxiety, and coping to the very best of their ability, I started thinking, what does the Dharma offer us that might ease our way on this really, really bumpy road? The spiritual path of enlightenment is not always that heavenly sound and radiant light. There's the darkness before the dawn. There are dark nights of the soul. So I thought, well, there are all the usual things, and we will get to them, because the Dharma is very big on stress reduction, on handling stress. It believes in letting go, relaxing. Jeff says, let it go. But there are several teachings, specific teachings, of what the Dharma calls immutable natural laws. And they cover pretty much what we're talking about. And I can only, each one is lengthy. So we can only briefly touch on them. And I picked out one quote for each. The first one is impermanence. This is the teaching that says everything constantly is changing, and that you will suffer if you try to hold on to cling to, and be unable to let go of anything that is not permanent. And nothing is permanent. Even the sun in billions of years will burn out. So we have this problem of dealing with change. And change is a matter of you're constantly out of balance. You have to make decisions. And you have to rebalance, and you have to readjust, you have to readapt. And so if this is that difficult, it's obviously stressful. What do we do in order to relieve ourselves of that kind of stress, of knowing that everything that we have will let go? We'll have to let go of it. There's the Chinese emperor who asked all his wise men to find one statement that would be true at all times, all these old things. And it took him a long time when he came back with one we all know, and this is the quote for change. This too shall pass. If through meditation and simple understanding that you need to relax and let go with the flow. If you can work on this, if you have a problem with it, you will do well to focus your energy and attention not on trying to maintain the status quo, but learning how to let go. Do you want to add anything to that, Jay?
I do want to add something.
We could do all these at length sometimes.
There's so much. I might even do a talk on the dynamics of change next week. But I think a lot of people in the middle of this crisis year of change, have wanted their old life back. And that's their goal. Their goal in this is little by little, and sometimes they take their life back, and it's dangerous for them and for everyone. But it's really interesting if you rework your thinking and your psyche through these practices, that you realize you never get your life back the way that it was. It's always an evolution forward. And if you have that perception of it, it minimizes your disappointment and anxiety. And therefore, if you accept the idea that there is a new life waiting for you today, and it will be different tomorrow, it's quite a calming idea. And so I think there are a lot of people wanting their life back, and the sad message for them is, I don't think you get it back.
And the sooner you recognize that and direct your energies and your focus on accepting it,
right,
and adapting.
Yes. I know just when it comes to, I do a lot of counseling with relationships, marriage relationships, other relationships. And a lot of people wanted how it was either ideally in their head or how it was earlier in their relationship. And what you realize is that love, trust, circumstances, personalities evolve. And you never get the next evolution of what the relationship and what you are in the relationship. This really plays out beyond our lifestyle. It plays out really in our relationship and, most importantly, of course, our relationship with ourselves.
Okay. That's number one.
I have a great example of.
Yes.
Speak up so that people can hear. Wendy's back behind the camera.
I have a great example of impermanence.
Okay.
Which is how you brought up the subject.
Yeah, we're casual. Here, we turn this thing around.
Over there.
It's okay.
No, there you go.
My daughter was driving up to see her niece and nephews last week, and she had her brother in the car with her, and she texted me at a rest stop, and she was really upset. Sean, her brother, had brought all these gifts for nieces and nephews, and she didn't have the money to buy. She was on a short budget because she's got student loans, and she was feeling really upset and inadequate. And she texted me, and she called me, and she was upset. And I tried to walk her through, your nieces and nephews will just be glad to see you. Don't worry about the gift. But the point is, 2 days later, I talked to her, and I said, how was the visit? And she said, great. And I said, remember when you called me and you were so upset? And she said, yeah. I said, what happened to those feelings? She said, they're gone. So I said, where did they go? But they're gone. So it's a great lesson of impermanence, because any feelings we have, whether they're good or bad, they're not going to last. They're always in flux. They're always changing. I thought that was a good example.
It was a good example. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so that is the first of the three laws. That's the law of impermanence. Roll with the change. Don't get stuck. The second one.
Can I add one that my grandfather was?
Sure.
If any of my family members get to see this, my grandfather Olson. It was his mantra: "Don't sweat the small stuff."
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all small stuff.
And it's mostly all small
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, that's what my son says. We ever say that. It's all small stuff. Okay, so if that one's a challenge for you, then face the challenge on your cushion or in your life or going Googling and listening to other talks or whatever. The second one, the second challenge that I want to talk about is connections. Just as we started at the beginning and we said we had the challenges of change, we also have tremendous challenges. And one of the things that we don't want to have change with are our connections. People are very disturbed, on the one hand, by the fact of being quarantined, not being able to be with other people for whatever reason, for a period of time. At the same time, these same people are wanting to build walls and fences to keep people away from them. So this is a very ambivalent thing in human nature. It's connections. And what happens to us when we go through a period where we are being forced to disconnect is very interesting because we begin to appreciate connection. The Dharma teaches us the lesson, the very important lesson, that you can never be disconnected. In a dualistic world, get into dualism another time, but in a dualistic world, you either are one or the other. You are connected or you are disconnected. But what the entire Dharma teaches us is oneness. That we are, in fact, connected whether we want to be or not. And that it is an illusion when we have separation. The best definition of the Dharma that I know is the one I'm going to have Jeff read to you by Albert Einstein. Please listen very carefully. This is simple on the surface, but within it there is the truth of oneness, that everything is connected. This, by the way, is scientifically being proven even at the quantum level.
I got it.
Got it?
A human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts, and feeling as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Albert Einstein.
Now, I truly recommend that you pull up on your internet. Notice that word internet? The World Wide Web, the internet, the connection, on communication. Pull up the quotes by Albert Einstein and read that a few times. It will take you to a whole another level. It's exactly what the Buddha taught. So that is one aspect of connection. In the early Dharma, in the Hindu days, they had what they called Indra's net. And Indra's net was a net that was cast across the whole cosmos. And at every intersection where there was a little knot, there hung a little jewel. And in that little jewel was reflected every other jewel in the universe. You can prove this, and it was done one time, by hanging a center mirror and all around it on four sides, on the floor, on the ceiling, more mirrors. And when you look at it, there's only one in the middle, but you see the many. And if you look at the many, you see the one in the middle. They're inseparable. You can't erase them. If you want to prove you can't erase them, you put a red dot on any one of the mirrors and look again. And that red dot's on. That mirror is in every single one. So this is E pluribus unum, the motto of the United States. The many together, unity. And we are having the most amazingly disturbing examples of polarization, of separation that has hardened and pulled people thinking that they're not connected. And this is one we're going to talk about a lot more as we go. But along with it, if we'll run out of time, along with it, there is interdependence. Interdependence means that we don't really do anything without being dependent on every other person in the universe in some way. I'll give you a quick quote on that one that I really like. It's by Carl Sagan. And he says, if you want to bake an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. So nothing is going to happen without all, we're going to get, that's the next thing too, without all of these other inputs all the way back. Your DNA shows connections back into the far reaches of time. Those are all past lives that have been put into you individually, and you are connected to all of them. Just think what would happen if all those strands of DNA could suddenly manifest, and you met all your ancestors, all the way back to Persia or something. That would be pretty cool. And then there's Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Zen master. And he coined a word and has created a world of information for people, heart information. Calls it interbeing. It takes the idea of unity, of oneness, and the idea of interdependence and puts them together into the fact just of, on an individual level, how closely intertwined we are with them. So, you want to add to that?
No, that's a big one.
Yeah, we could do it. Anybody? How about you, Suzanne? Anybody want to say anything on that one? Noticing connections, noticing changes. It's very interesting for me, and we should do this another time.
Well, speaking of Thich Nhat Hanh, he was gathered with his students eating breakfast one morning, and he said to his one student who was eating yogurt, he said, "What do you see in the yogurt?" And the student didn't understand, and he explained, in the yogurt is the cow, the grass, the sun,
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
the person
all
that,
of this.
all of this.
And it
So,
goes back.
connected.
But you can't have the apple to bake an apple pie unless you go all the way back to the beginning of creation. And the connection here, which we'll talk about more, is what Einstein calls, until we understand the compassion. Love is the truth at the heart of all creation. It is more powerful than any other energetic force, including hatred, which is the opposite side of the coin, because it's created. So we go back to that, but we are connected and we do our meta meditation. And the Dharma teaches us that the most sublime teaching is the teaching of loving kindness. And if there is one practice that will take us to enlightenment, it is the practice of loving kindness and compassion.
Can I add
So,
about connection? I do have one thing that really, one of the things that I've learned by coming to these Dharma talks is the idea that connections are meant to be held gently,
mm-hmm,
carefully, and not firmly.
mm-hmm,
If they're held firmly, this, I believe, second of the Four Noble Truths
mm-hmm.
says
Clinging.
that we're doing too much with the
Don't
connection.
grasp, yeah.
We are holding on to it. We are needing it. We are grasping it. We don't want it to change. We are desperate for it, and that level of imbalance causes suffering for us. And so, one of the things that I've learned about connections by coming here is as I do my palm too many times, but it just
No, we
totally
do.
makes
It's like
sense.
meta. It's there.
When you're connected to something and it sits in your palm, you don't own it, but it is for that moment yours. You are connected to it, but it also has a life of its own. It chooses to stay connected to you. And if we keep an open attitude about all that and gently hold,
Because you realize they're precious and you don't want to crush them because they're going to flourish all on their own in space and time if you don't feel like you're going to lose them or be separated from them.
yes,
Now we have our
Clinging.
5-minute thing here, so I'm.
yes,
I'm just going to say one more thing. Clinging reveals our fear of losing.
That's right.
yes,
It is the fear of loss,
yes,
and all of
and
this.
then we suffer.
And then we suffer.
Then we suffer the loss. Anyway, so that it's kind of a futile process, really, that we.
But we can suffer losses, but we don't have to suffer mentally.
Suffering is optional because suffering comes from the mind, and the mind can be changed. You can use choice, and that in itself can be frightening. We want other people to make our choices for us. But I want to do the third one, and I'll just say it right out. The third immutable law is the law of karma, of cause and effect, of consequences. And in a sentence, there are many kinds of karma. It's the kind that we're talking about is personal, moral, and collective personal ethics. And that is the fourth step that we'll get into here eventually. But it boils down to everything you think, say, and do is self-creating yourself. You choose what you think. You choose what you say. You choose what you do. And harking back to his very important talk the last time he had one, is you choose what you listen to and who you listen to. And so I would just say, because we're out of time, you will find spiritual teachers in everywhere you look. You've got the main ones for me, for example, and I think for some of us here, are the Buddha and the Christ. But every spiritual path is open to being called the Dharma. It's not exclusive. And if you think of modern teachers, your spiritual teachers are, for example, Gandhi, who's Hindu, the Dalai Lama, who's Martin Luther King, a Baptist Protestant, Thomas Merton, a Catholic, and so on and so on. You can go on. And you can get to the arts. And that includes one of my favorites, which is the comic character for the funnies, little Pogo, the possum of Walt Kelly, who just said the most wonderful things, including the immortalized. We have met the enemy, and he is us. And when you grasp the fact that if you have enemies, it's not that guy out there, because you can only let him in if you decide to. You get that choice. And they may indeed be enemies of your belief systems, your policies, and I'm hurrying, so I'm not saying it as well as I'd like to. We'll talk about it more. But there are also pop musicians like Paul Williams, who has a wonderful song about a lovely lady. And it ends with her belief that every bit of kindness is a little bit of love we leave behind. That's her legacy. Every bit of kindness is a little bit of love we leave behind. And another that says, everything you'll be remembered for what you say and do. Give a little love and it comes right back to you. So these are our teachings. We are now at the closing moment. And we're going to take up all this. If any of this resonates with you, get the information from Jeff on how to give him your, I don't see, so give him your comments, your suggestions. And now for our final meditation. I'm going to keep it shorter today. Relax. Close your eyes. You can speak out loud if you're at home watching this but repeat either silently or aloud to someone besides yourself. Yourself first and someone you love. So to yourself, you're going to wish well. This is loving kindness meditation. It is unconditional friendliness. To yourself say, may I be well. May no harm come to me. May I live with ease, calm and peaceful. May I be happy. And now, sending love, may you be well. May no harm. May you live with ease, calm. You move forward with the same wishes. Next to a neutral person, then to someone in conflict. Give them all the same attention. And then we come to everyone in the entire world, in the cosmos. And we say this a little differently. We say, may all beings everywhere on this plane and all other planes be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. Ding. And now, on together, go in peace, making peace, living gently, loving mightily, and bowing to the mystery. Thank you all. We'll see you next week. We love you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.